Perfect timing then.
Nice to see everyone. I'll keep an eye here on the list and see if we've got some more folks joining us a little bit, but go ahead and get the packet up. Yeah, today just flew by. 5 o'clock came quickly.
That could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your
That's what
perspective.
happens when you have back-to-back Zoom calls all day.
Yes.
Hard to get anything else done, but all good.
Just imagine if you have to drive every place.
Yeah.
Why would we do that anymore? It's amazing to think how much time we used to spend in our cars going back and forth.
It will come back. Yes, it will. We ready to get started?
I'm ready when you are. And actually, is Peggy on yet? Okay, there you are. Okay,
There you are.
our fearless minute taker.
Awesome. Let's call this to order at 5:01.
Oh. Okay.
And
Oh, go ahead.
and so therefore, just wanted to start off with the approval of the minutes. So the March 3rd, 2021
You should do a roll
minutes.
call. Right?
Yeah, I forgot to put
Okay.
roll call on here, Mark, if you want to do that first.
Did. Okay. All right. If we could call a roll call, that would be great.
Sure. Van Kampen,
Here.
Frisch,
Here.
Frisch here.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Miller,
Here. Or which Miller are you talking about? Are you talking about the student member? Miller
Mark
Stain?
Miller, sorry. Miller Stang,
I don't see her on.
Yeah, no, I think she had a school commitment tonight.
okay. Jameson,
Here.
thank you. And Klein,
Here.
all right, thank you.
That's everyone?
That is everyone.
Very good. Well, let's move to the minutes then for March 3rd, 2021. I'm assuming everyone got those minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Bill Van Kampen.
Klein, second.
Thank you.
All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Community input, item number 3. This is part of our agenda where we allow members of the public to provide information to the park board, including items that are on the agenda, as well as those that are not on the agenda. Under our open meeting laws, the section of the agenda allows the park board to receive information and to ask some questions of the presenter to facilitate a better understanding of the information. We do want to limit this to 15 minutes that we provide for any of the community input itself. But we do want to keep in mind that we got to abide by the open laws. And so therefore, it's really to bring information to the park board and become aware of it. So we don't necessarily take any action off of it. We may make some recommendation to do that or advise to whether do committees or move it to the staff for some assistance. But so do we have anybody from the community that would like to present to the park board this evening?
I'm Larry Marr. I'm here for an agenda item a little later.
That's correct. So we do have you on the agenda already. Thank you, Mr. Mark.
Yes.
No other community input outside of the agenda? Very good. We'll keep moving forward. Item 4, village board report. I know there is no report. Is there any other thing that the staff may like to advise to the board at this time?
Mark, just
Hearing none.
at Tuesday's board meeting next week, the new park board member from the board will be appointed. But your main meeting, there'll be a village board in attendance, member in attendance. So,
Awesome. Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
So we'll move on to number 5, public appearances. Item A, we have Teresa Nelson regarding the Oregon Nature Alliance. I turn it over to you, Teresa.
Hi, thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me to share a little bit more about our organization. So last time I talked a little bit about our mission, and just I'll do a recap of that. So our mission is to protect and enhance local natural areas in our parks and throughout the village, while also promoting activities that bring people closer to nature. So you'll notice the words nature and natural in our group name and our mission and our goals. And I think nature can mean different things to different people. When I think of nature, I think of it as a community of plants and animals that have evolved together over thousands of years. These communities or ecosystems were here long before we humans were. Put it simply, humans cannot exist without nature. Nature provides basic services to human survival, oxygen, food, clean drinking water, the absorption of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, not to mention the other numerous benefits to our mental health and well-being. Really, we cannot survive without nature. But we've drastically altered our natural world. We have displaced nature with turf grass and trees from Europe and Asia. We've replaced nature with buildings and pavement, with crops and grazing animals. We've done this to the point that nature is relegated to a limited number of conservancy parks and preserves. So if we need nature and there's not much left, should we just get rid of the pavement and the buildings and the crops? Obviously not, but I'm saying that we have taken too much. We have altered the landscape too much, and we can no longer continue to live like we have if we want our species to survive. So what do? Really, it's pretty simple. We have to bring nature home. We need to restore the foundation of healthy ecosystems, and that foundation is native plants. Native plants capture the sun's energy and turn it into food for other creatures, which then become food for others, and so on. Without native plants, we cannot hope to support the rest of the life around us. So you may ask, well, what's wrong with all of the green stuff around us now? Well, insects play a large role in transferring that energy from plants up the food chain. And many of our insects are specialists, meaning they're very picky. They only can eat certain plants. The monarch caterpillar is one example you're probably familiar with. It can only eat milkweed, nothing else. If we don't have milkweed, we don't have monarchs. And this is the case with many, many insect species. So we need native plants, and we need to plant them everywhere, where we live, where we work, where we play. It's our responsibility to restore these communities to ultimately support us as humans. And I believe there's a lot of support for restoring natural ecosystems in the village. It really is just another integral piece in the sustainability puzzle that the village is piecing together, with projects like the new library and the net zero with that. I'll also point out that the second goal of our village's park and recreation plan is to preserve the village's natural resources and amenities for the benefit of current and future residents and visitors. So the goal of the Oregon Nature Alliance is really to bring nature back to Oregon, to our homes, to our parks and our businesses, to reconnect ourselves with nature and to each other, and to do this through collaboration with folks like yourselves and others throughout the community. So thanks for the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does any of the park board members have any questions, Teresa?
Jerome, I've got a question. I think you mentioned last time how large your group is, but could you just restate that? And then do you have kind of a set agenda that you are looking to accomplish in this calendar year?
So our group, our formal membership has, I think, close to 30 members now. And we have, I think, close to 200 people that are following our Facebook page since we put it up about half a month ago, I forget how long it's been. And we're working on kind of prioritizing our plans for the year. We've got a number of ideas, and we're looking to see which ones have the most support from our members to start moving forward. But some of the ideas are a free native plant program for homeowners in the village, working with the folks like the Wellness Committee to organize events in our parks. We're going to be participating in the park cleanup this month that the Wellness Coalition has organized, and other opportunities again to not only enhance our natural areas, but also provide people with information, give them opportunities to learn more about it and interact with nature.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Teresa? Very good. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Public appearance, item B. Arlen Kay. Wendell, and I think you have a variety of
If
people
I
with you
yield,
tonight.
if I yield to Larry Marr to start this off.
Excellent move.
Okay, we're happy to have the invitation to come before the park board to bring you up to date on what our organization in the Oregon Rotary has done and is doing with Lerner Park, and to say that we appreciate the help and support that we've had from the Village of Oregon over the years since Lerner Park became a park. I recognized in my time in Oregon since 1970 that Lerner Park wasn't always a part of that, and there was a Lerner family who owned 40 acres on the west side of the village that was considered wasteland. They moved from the community and donated the land to the village and requested that it be turned into a park. At that point in time, it was hard to look at this scraggly growth that was there in that 40 acres and try to envision a park there. But we had some forward-thinking people in our club that had experience with native prairie restoration, and this was kind of on the beginning of people paying attention to the prairie and establishing native prairie. So this would have been in around 1990 that the Rotary Club decided that they wanted to take on some property that the village was offering to do some prairie restoration. That would be a 40-acre parcel that is outlined under the arrow there. The goal of our mission was to have a demonstration project that demonstrated restoration and continued sustainability of land that had previously been native prairie but had seen poorer times, and this really fit the definition of what we wanted to have to work with. There was, as there is now, a variety of structures there on that property, some of it being high enough to be dry, and at different times since 1970, since I've been looking at it, it has gone from being a mostly dry with a lot of brush growing, and now it has accumulation of water that is, as we all know about, has been a major source of worry for the village as a whole. So we took on looking for a plan, and there was a plan developed by a graduate student in architectural landscape architecture at the University of Wisconsin that put together for a senior project a a rendering of Lerner Park as a restored prairie. And from that, we had the people that we had mentioned before in Rotary that were knowledgeable and interested in this, and the person in forefront of that was Alan Miller, who still is an advisor to our committee from Rotary. And we wanted to have a goal set then of having a demonstration project that could demonstrate the values of restoring native prairie, the value of having basically wasteland brought back into property and land that could be enjoyed. It could grow native species. It could support wildlife and various birds and waterfowl. And so we started out on our venture in about 1990, and the second goal that we had was to be able to do education out of this project. And at that point, we connected with the Oregon School District, and mainly at that point in time, it was the middle school earth sciences department for 8th graders, and it has continued to be a strong focus area for our project. We did have a lot of help up front from a variety of resources, including the Boy Scouts in the community, 2 different troops that worked on various projects for Eagle Scout projects. We had other groups that have been involved, even the people from the prison system were in and helped with the project that Al Miller was heading up and making all these things happen. So we worked a program out with the middle school 8th grade earth science department to have them support the project and be involved with it by growing prairie plants that they would in the classroom, and now it's in the greenhouse, and bring those to the park for a field day in the spring and in May, and where those plants will be put in to the ground. At that same time, they would get their swing at removing honeysuckle, which is always a big item for them, and it was a great help to the Rotary Club, which has always been a little bit short on people power to get our big ideas taken care of. But the other things that the field day accomplish is that we do honeysuckle removal. We get the plants planted, and we've done some seeding, direct seeding, and then we have been able to develop a nice system of walking trails through the park. Each year we've tried to continue to spread out a little bit more with the honeysuckle removal and develop more land that can be restructured into prairie. So with that with all that growth happening, we started to realize that we were getting ourselves into a position of having more work to get done than we had people to do it. And part of our being able to come here and speak to the park board would be to be able to sit down with Rotary and determine what is the best way to go with the continued use of Lerner Park. We have a lot of structures that we put together there by different groups, bridges. We've got walkways over some of the marshy areas. We've got observation decks and platforms. We'd like to see this continued, but we are going to need help, both from people power and financially. So that's the part I wanted to present, and Wendell Motzke is on board here to do the next segment of our presentation to you.
Good evening. Larry covered the bulk of the operation of the park, and we do a controlled burn, or try to do a controlled burn every spring, and it's evaded us last year, and it's trying to evade us this year. And then the eighth graders come in with their projects. And then there is a fairly loose group of Friends of Lerner Park that when right now it's just a group that is kind of let us know they exist, and we can call on them for a little bit of labor. A work day, we had 3 work days last year, and we'll be looking towards some work days this year to do some maintenance of structures and so on, pruning and so on. So we're looking to help Lerner Park be more of a welcome area for people to go and enjoy nature. So, Arlen?
You're on mute, Arlen. So, Arlen.
That would be helpful, wouldn't it?
We want to hear your
Well, I don't
voice.
know. Most people try to shut me up, so that's another issue. What we're looking at is what we need to do is expand the vision, and expand that vision through development of a master plan for Lerner Park. Well, the conservation, let's call it the conservation park. Lerner Park is itself is part of this. Well, let's see. Let's call it 160 acres of wet and sort of dry land. I can't describe it in a better way here. Wet and sort of dry. We have been developing the sort of dry area into the prairie. But you see that 160 acres, that includes the Keller Alpine Meadows, the Dega Park, Lerner Park, and the DiMaggio property. All of that land can use a master plan. A master plan for what? This is for use as a passive park, but it's also a conservancy park. How do we have a conservancy park where our groups continue to restore the native plantings and remove the invasive species? We need to continue to expand the trails and connect the trails. You have the wonderful Alpine metal paved trail that's through there. We need to connect with that into the Lerner Park area. We need to be expanding the passive recreation opportunities and enhance the wildlife areas. If you look at some of the dark areas that are on the map, that is most of that is standing water. Standing water where a lot of waterfowl are living. If you go into the into Lerner Park, be prepared to be chewed out by a group of sandhill cranes that say, this is our nesting area. Go, move, move, move. So how do we have this compatibility of retaining this wonderful wildlife experience that we have in here, the wild plant area, the walking areas, and manage the water that's coming through into the village. Not only do you have the Lake Barney to the north, but you have a whole drainage catchment area of 10 square miles to the north, another 6 square miles to the west that all drains through this little 160-acre area, and that's why it's wet. And then it also drains out through one little pipe that runs by the Quick Trip. So this is the very, very narrow neck of the hourglass that is an opportunity to be having a passive park. And that passive park can also be giving us this opportunity to have a nature park in there. So we were pushing for having this master plan. The Rotary Club is committed to continuing to be expanding and improving the
We lost you, Arlen. You froze.
It's that rural broadband.
Yes, it is. It will come back.
Oh, he's gone.
Well, we completely lost him. There he came back. Now you're muted. You're still muted, Arlen. Or maybe he's dialing in.
There we go. There we go.
Okay.
Don't know where we cut it off, but we want to be having the plan so that we can share the vision with your park board, with the village, with the community, and that this is the Rotary Club is committed to be continuing to do this restoration. We want to get that the village needs to be having the plan.
Village.
Includes the water management.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Does anybody in the park board have questions for these three gentlemen? Okay, hearing no questions. Thank you for joining us. Public appearance on the agenda. Item C, Ben Cowan, the Oregon Youth Sports Incorporated. Ben?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Wonderful.
Good. Elise asked me to come on to just talk a little bit about what we are. I think most of you on here have been on a couple other calls with us. So Oregon Youth Sports, we formed ourselves, it's coming on probably 8-9 months now, really with kind of two key ideas. One was to centralize all the communication for sports in the community, put everybody on a centralized website, make it easier to use for parents, scheduling events, etc. So we're still working through that one. The website itself is built. A couple of the sports clubs have jumped on board to use the website. A lot of them have chosen to just link off of it, which is fine. So we're going to get going more on that here probably the next couple months. The second part was trying to figure out like land acquisition, development, increased field space, and opportunities for kids to get outside and play. So that's where this conversation comes in. It's the Going back and forth with the Anderson Park. I've talked to Dane County Parks multiple times, talked to the village a couple times. Really trying to just figure out how to do it to get back there. There's that 40-acre parcel that's slated for recreational development. I don't know if Elise has it, if it matters at this moment, but so we've been going back and forth. Jim Purdon owns some land that butts up to it. He's kind of in the process right now of figuring out development options. Him and the Andersons are for what that land looks like. So next step is to talk to some of the people that own the Lincoln land coming off of Lincoln and just figure out how we can get an easement to get back to that property. I think once the easement's set, then we can start on fundraising for developing it. So the idea back there would be I had it drawn up to have eight full-size soccer / lacrosse, rugby, ultimate frisbee fields. And I think with the addition of JC Park and the baseball diamonds going in across the street from me, I'm not saying that that's enough for baseball, but I think that's a good start. So let's focus on the other sports being, soccer's the biggest one. And then lacrosse is really coming up too. So just trying to find opportunities for these kids to play and not play in a marsh. So our board itself, it's a couple area business guys. Jason Zerowick, he's with the middle school. Kim Griffin's with the high school. I asked Elise if a member of the village, village staff would like to be on the board. Her and Mike said probably not appropriate, which is fine, but let's put a parks board member, on it, or at least have them, sit in on the meetings and so we can get the information, to everybody. Elise, did I miss anything?
I think that was kind of what we wanted to cover. I do have the images of kind of what you were envisioning for that space out on off of Lincoln and Union, so I can try to pull those up too if that's something folks want to see. But I know right now the big issue with that is access to that site since it is landlocked. Getting that figured out.
Yeah, I think we're getting closer. It's nothing. I like to move a little bit quicker on stuff, but this one's taking a while, for sure. Yeah, if you have it, pull it up. I had just a graphic designer whip it up, and it could be something special for Oregon.
We do have a question. Phil, would you like to ask a question? You're muted, Phil.
Thank you. I'm unclear, Ben. Initially, we talked about Anderson Farm Park, and then you talked about private ownership. Is the parcel you're talking about in Anderson Farm Park or abutting? Or?
It is. So it's Dane County owned. So that 40 acres that Elise is just printed on. So that's 40
right there. Okay.
Yeah. So, but everything around it is private. So that's private. That's all private. So we have to find a way to get, from Lincoln or Union, or potentially Locust. I don't know if that'll happen, but try to find a way to get back to it.
Right.
We have to make a deal with one of the landowners to give us an easement.
Yeah.
Would that land continue to be owned by the county then, and then sort of operated by Oregon Youth Sports?
Potentially. Yeah. So it'd be a similar relationship that Dane County has with Mesa. So Redden Park. So Mesa has the lease. They lease that land. So this was kind of the initial idea.
And then, sorry, Mark, I'm not sure if I should just talk or. Anyway.
I guess that's
Are you looking at the village or the county doing the actual development, or a private party?
So that's where, Dane County, they've told us a few times that, like, hey, we have the land. We don't have any money to help you with the land, but we're definitely willing to lease the land.
Okay.
That's as far as I got with Dane County. I have not talked to the village, to the town, anything about funding for this. in my mind, it was kind of anticipating of us doing a capital campaign to raise the development money ourselves as the Oregon Youth Sports Inc., the nonprofit.
And as Dane County indicated, they wish to retain ownership, and the only option for your group is to lease the land. Is that accurate?
They're trying to buy more land, so I haven't asked them if they'd sell it.
Yeah.
You know, and
Okay.
so I had to be a question. I was operating under the assumption that they wanted to retain ownership and that they would lease us the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Jerome?
I'm not totally familiar with the village boundaries. Is this in the village of Oregon?
In the town.
In the town.
In the town, okay, that's so we'd have to figure out how that would coalesce with the village as well at some point, assuming this gets to that point. And Ben, what youth sports groups are you working with, or are you trying to work with?
Trying to work with all of them. Yeah, so we've had a couple different meetings, couple different Zoom meetings with a majority of the presidents of the youth sports clubs. And right now it's just going back and forth on whether they want to be a part of the website or not. We haven't gotten to any conversations with them about, about fundraising aspects for this.
Sure.
I think once we get to that point and we can get back to it, that's that next conversation.
Okay.
Other questions for Ben?
So Mark, I know one of the things Ben mentioned is potentially looking to have a village park board member represented on the board for Oregon Youth Sports Inc. So I don't know if that's something you want to wait until the village board member is on as well, or that's somebody that wants to, volunteer. I think, I'm not sure all that entails, Ben, probably monthly Zoom calls and just sort of be able to be more in the loop on efforts that the sports organizations are doing together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more in the loop. We're going to do quarterly meetings, until we get to a point where there's a bunch more forward movement. So really, it's a couple hours every quarter, and it's an effort to create unity and just get everybody on the same page. Let's work together versus against each other, like I've kind of seen in the past. Not with your board, but just in general.
It would be valuable to keep informed so that we know what's going on, or if we're welcome to join in. That would be helpful.
Well, if you guys want to discuss it, as we get going, I guess it would be our next meeting won't be for another month at least. So if you guys want to just talk about it amongst yourselves, and if you want to appoint somebody to join our board, that'd be great. And if you just want to come sit in, that's totally fine too. We'll make it public for you.
Any other questions from the park board members? All right, Ben, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Moving on to item 6, communications and miscellaneous business. Item A, discussion and possible recommendations to the village board regarding the use of parks for athletic practice and games. So item I was Highlands of Netherwood playing field weekend use for soccer. Somebody want to expand on that?
Mark, this is Jeff Rout. This is a freshly sodded field that was sodded probably mid to late fall, and it's taken well. We do believe that the field will be ready, will be ready in the very, very near future for practices and such. But we also feel like especially this season, we need to let that field have some rest time. So what we've, in some of our planning has been that we would allow, it's like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday schedule for the soccer and the lacrosse. And Mike is not, if that's correct, I believe, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, and that gives us a Wednesday rest and then a Saturday, Sunday rest. You know, it might be available for some weekend tournament, maybe like the Fall Fury tournament, that type of thing. And we kind of look at the health of it. But what we don't want to do is, you know, we just put down, I want to say it was $70,000 worth of sod on that field. And we want to make sure that it's healthy, it's established, growing well, and all that type of stuff. And that's why we're, you know, wanting to structure that playing time as we have. Does that make sense?
Certainly makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yep. This is Eric Anderson from the soccer club.
Yeah.
It apparently this got on the agenda because of me. It was simply just a question I asked. I didn't. I was a little surprised when I saw it on the agenda. Also, just in general, we're asked to make our reservations for the entire calendar year at the beginning. So even if we did want to play it, say, on a weekend in October for the Fall Fury, according to what we've been asked to do, we're supposed to put in our entire year request. So that's why we were
Sure.
asked that. And Jeff, we totally, like, you know, you emailed us last week, totally good, no problem whatsoever, absolutely agree. You know, if it's not playable this spring, you know, you don't want to risk long-term damage for it, you know, if it's not ready to go until the fall or whatever.
Right.
You know, we completely understand, we get it.
Yeah, no, and no worries at all, Eric, at all with that. We know you guys, we know, actually, we're anxious to get people out there playing. I mean, it's a beautiful field. I've been out on it numerous times, and we're excited because it is honestly the best field we have in Oregon. Once we get it ready and everything like that, it's been, I don't know if you've noticed, it's been taking a while for that sod to wake up out there, and the company has assured us that that's normal, and it's actually greening up nicely, and we've been watering it a lot lately. But yeah, we want to get it so that it's just ready to go and everything. And I will say this, the soccer club has been absolutely understanding of all that. So I hope there wasn't any kind of misinformation or anything like that. But
no, we were all good. Like I said, I was a little surprised. I mean, I was literally just asking a question like, can I put reservations in or not? And I did not like this. I wasn't,
right.
We weren't making any official request. It was just kind of a, hey, what about the weekend?
Yeah.
That was it. We're totally fine with that. Absolutely.
Well, Eric, will you be having a spring tournament or well, it's spring now, but I mean,
No.
will you be having any kind of tournament in the summer?
Nope, not until the fall.
Okay. And I don't see, barring any like major problems with the field, I easily, we should be able to schedule you out for that, and you and your tournament would be priority on that for having that, because that's kind of what we've structured that area out there for as well.
Great.
Yeah,
That's perfect. Great.
I think we just decided to toss this on the agenda just to make sure the park board was aware of kind of what our plan was.
Exactly. Yep.
For use,
Understand
at
it.
least kind of in the short term as that sod gets established. So
Great.
no one's getting put on the spot. Yeah, just
Okay.
keeping everyone in the loop.
All good. All good.
Awesome. Thank you for calling in, Eric. Appreciate that. Phil, could you have a question?
Yes, perhaps everyone else knows, but I have no idea who Mr. Anderson is or who he represents.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Eric Anderson. I'm the president of Oregon Soccer Club.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to item A, the second item, Norm Champion, Rustic Vineyards, and Bergamot Park for soccer.
Peggy, when you updated the packet today, is that at the bottom or is that past all these other emails?
All right, should be at the end of 6A.
Okay,
is.
There we go. Okay, just want to make sure I got the last email. Okay,
Thank you.
so Mark, this has been the request from the soccer club for use of some of our neighborhood parks. This is pretty similar to what was approved last year. I know we had some discussion about kind of days of the week and practices versus games. So this is very similar to what was requested and approved last year, right before COVID, for use in similar parks, I think, as well.
Yeah, so I can give a quick recap. So we did remove Bergamot from the list. It just, in reality, it's just really difficult for us to use. So so we took that one off. We did tweak, if you look at it, compared to the request from last year, it does tweak a little bit the hours at Norm Champion, but I think everything else is the same. Oh, the addition of a possible 2 hours on Sundays. So I guess if I could just say why we're making these requests. So Highlands, another one, as we just talked about, that was something that, we were thinking we might be able to use 2 days a week, but obviously not. So we had to cross that off the list. We don't currently have any use of school district fields at this point. So, usually we would have practices at RCI or sessions at the fields behind Netherwood and Prairie View. And those aren't available, which is fine. Again, like, we just adjust and make it work. But like right now we have more than 200 more players signed up for this spring than we did in the fall. The vast majority of those are our younger age groups, but we also have essentially combined all of our practices. So instead of putting one team on a field, we'll put 2 teams on a field. So we really are trying to make this all work. But even doing that, the reason I don't have my video on is because I am actually taking a break from coaching a practice in Fitchburg. So we are now renting fields in Fitchburg to make do until we are hopeful that we would get these requests approved, and we would be able to bring these practices back into Oregon. We have like Rustic Vineyard and Champion. We have goals there. We have porta potties there. I have not heard any complaints from neighbors of those parks. I would assume that if there were, someone probably would have let me know and asked me to answer for them. So I think our experience that we had heard, I guess I will take that back. We did get one email that wasn't really a complaint, more of a request that we took care of at Champion.
Yeah.
But I don't believe there has been any public, complaints or people upset with us, doing whatever the complaint might be. So I would hope that the park board would endorse us getting those requests granted again this year.
Yes, Jeff.
I just wanted to clarify, and Eric, we really do hope, I'm anticipating that we'd be able to get you guys 2 days a week on Highlands and Netherwood Park in May.
Yeah. That would
That's-
be great.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
Okay. So
that would be fabulous.
And-
we would love it.
Yep. And then I do want to personally
That would
thank
allow
Eric.
us to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I just wanted to thank you. I did, I forwarded that one request from a neighbor about the porta potty at Norm Champion.
Yep.
I want to just admit that I drove by and I noticed it had been moved, and I want to say that soccer has been very responsive to the neighbors, and I'm usually the recipient of complaints. I think that's complaint department is on my door out front, and that's part of the job. And, we've not had many, if any, complaints, not anything that's been a problem. So.
And Mark, may I ask a question to Eric?
Certainly, Mike,
Sure.
go ahead.
And not to jump ahead on the next item, but so Eric, you're aware that we're talking about doing those 2 fields on Alpine Parkway, right? What,
Yes.
it'd be next to the bank building and next to the dentist's office?
Yeah, 2 fields?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, on both
Okay.
sides of Alpine Parkway.
Two
Yeah, we
sites.
talked, on both sides. I guess I didn't
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
I
Dan.
only knew the bank.
Yeah, Dan Bertler is going to let us use it. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I know when we looked at these requests in the past, there's been concerns about playing on Sundays, like in Stone Ridge Park, for example, is that, it's behind homes. Windcrest has a pretty open area, but, Stone Ridge Park is sort of, I'm not saying tucked behind homes, but it's somewhat. And I'm just wondering if you would, maybe rather than getting maybe some complaints, if you would maybe think about moving those uses to the fields on Alpine Parkway. Just a thought.
Yep, and to be honest, like we haven't used, so we got permission last year to use Windcrest and Stone Ridge. We did not use them.
Yeah. Yep.
They were essentially our kind of backup.
Gotcha.
Ideally, we wouldn't. We did actually get a comment from someone who has a player in our club who lives near Stone Ridge and asked us to reconsider using it.
Yeah.
And then you might recall the meeting when the usage was approved. There was some discussion about Bergamot and a concern. We did not use Bergamot. Like we just with the way Oregon fields tend to be wet, we just wanted to make sure we had somewhere to go. But those would just be backup, like we can't figure out anything else.
Okay.
And we just wanted to make sure we had backup. But I'm fine looking at. I was not aware about the one on the other side. I knew the bank side one. We talked about it at the meeting a couple of weeks ago. But I was not aware of the other side, and I live roughly in that area and walk by it quite a bit, and don't think I haven't thought about that before. So, I'm sure we would be interested in that if those were options as well.
Okay, thank you.
The fields aren't wet; they're naturally watered.
Excellent.
No, they're never too dry, right? We don't ever have to spend money watering them.
Right.
So Lise, maybe you can help out in regards to the scheduling and whether these fields are held and not used. If we go ahead with this and give permission, in the event that they don't use them, do they still go into the registration system? Do they end up, just don't want to get them locked down in such a fashion that they say, okay, we really don't need them, but nobody else can use them or nobody else can make a reservation for them.
Yeah,
So I know that plan was a year out, we get the schedules out. Just want to make sure there's still some communication so that if the soccer doesn't necessarily need to use them, that it doesn't prevent other organizations from using the fields.
Mm-hmm. That would be a good question for Deb, since she helps us out a lot with the reservation system. Deb, how does it work in terms of reserving? If that looks like something maybe, for Sundays, they decide they're definitely not going to be using, Stone Ridge and Windcrest. Would that just be something you would remove from the system?
Yeah, well, actually, those are parks that are not on the system. The only one that is Rustic Vineyard. We have one field that is there, that is the Ball Diamond field. The other field that is the soccer field is the one that was used for the big soccer tournament and in town when we had the have that on the reservation system because that was a head of the board and asked permission to use that field. So if baseball is using it, then soccer doesn't. If soccer is using it, baseball doesn't. So there's only one field on the reservation system at that one.
Yeah.
The other ones are not reservable at this point. Those are community parks or neighborhood parks. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. Yep, neighborhood.
It's hard to keep all the terms straight. Yeah.
I know, all these terms.
So I know that soccer is also done. Go ahead.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say, so essentially, if we didn't use it, then nobody would, and it would, and anybody could.
Right. We just want to make sure, yeah, that gets communicated. Maybe we
Sure.
check into, in a couple weeks, if that tends to be something that you realize you're definitely not using, Sundays. I know you've also, soccer's done a good job, I think, in the last year, at least, that I've been paying attention, communicating with some of the other organizations and working together to make sure that everybody does have field space and, times aren't overlapping and things too. So I would hope that communication would continue.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like Deb was just talking about at Rustic Vineyard, it tends to be softball that use it. Youth softball is the group that tends to use that field. So before we put the field in, we went out there with their field person and went over it, make sure that we weren't going to be messing anything up for them. They were good with that. We work with them all the time. And like Mike was talking about the field, on Alpine, yes, we would be interested, but like I said at the meeting a few weeks ago, if lacrosse, if that would be good for them, that's fine too. We're certainly not here saying that we need all of it. And to be honest, like Windcrest and Stone Ridge, those would be like emergency. We have nowhere else to go. Let's just go there kinds of things. Like I said, we had permission to use it in 2020. We didn't use either of them or Bergamont. So the ones that we're asking for now are the one with those two exceptions where it does say possible use. The Champion, Rustic Vineyard, and then being able to occasionally have teams on both fields at High Meadows. Those are kind of the three things that would fix a lot of issues for us.
Okay. Would anybody in the park board like to make a motion to approve the use of these fields?
Yeah, this is Jerome Klein. I'll make a motion to approve the use of those fields as Eric has stated that for the soccer club.
Do we have a second?
Van Campen, second.
Discussion, any further discussion or other questions? Yes, Phil.
Are we approving tonight any additional park usage over last year?
I haven't compared apples to apples, but it is very similar to the number of days a week. I think most of them were, 2 to 4 weekdays and maybe 1 weekend day. So not a significant increase for sure.
And are we adding any specific parks, or are these the same parks that have been used in the past?
Same parks.
And just one more point for clarification, thank you. I believe I heard early on that they will not be using Bergamot Park.
Correct. That's not part of their request this year.
Great. Thanks very much, Elsie.
May I ask a question, or is it not time for me to ask that?
You certainly may, Deb.
I have a question about Rustic Vineyard. If we're going to run with soccer on that one field and softball on the other, do you want that in the system as having two organizations going on at the same time, or does that not matter?
Shouldn't be going on at the same time, I don't think.
So. I don't think so.
Okay, because they're separate areas. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't putting in another field if you wanted it. I wasn't sure.
Eric?
I was going to say I could speak a little bit to it. When we went out there, I was with our field person when we met with the softball field person, and he pointed out that where that field is set up, there is no one in the league that plays there would ever reach. Also, they can, now I will say I have not checked in with them to make sure, but typically they will not have seasons. We will not have overlapping seasons, at least for their age that plays in that park. As far as I know, but if that's a thing, we're totally fine. Talking to them and making sure, hey, if they're going to be on the diamond that day, we will make sure that we are not on the soccer field. We work that way elsewhere with them. That's not a problem.
That's fine. I would just want to make sure that there was clarification between, you know what I mean, if I needed to add another reservation on that system or not.
Looks like Jeff has a question.
Yes,
or
Jeff,
point of
go.
clarification.
Yeah, point of order. No. One thing I want to just bring out that we've discussed internally and would love to bring, we will be bringing this back to the park board at a later date, not for this year, because we're coming out of COVID. We really want to get the fields used, all that kind of stuff. But we're probably going to be wanting to revamp the system in the next year. That will be more of a, and this is where it gets a little controversial, but we will be recommending charging for field usage. Especially as we start to develop more fields and the quality of our fields are going up. It helps, I think, in the scheduling of fields so that, right now, if there's no fee for using a field, there's no really restriction in somebody renting a whole field for a whole day. And then that may block out use by somebody else. And a lot of times it's hard because you don't know your schedules and everything like that. But if we are able to develop a fee schedule, and I want it to be I would recommend it to be a very reasonable fee schedule, but I think it would allow a little better management of the field so that we can have multiple clubs and entities using the fields even on the same day. Not at the same time, but maybe you might have lacrosse doing a morning practice and soccer doing an afternoon game, session type of thing. So that's one of the things we'll be bringing back to the park board, and we'll be working with Deb and our scheduling system and everything as we go forward. Because especially once we bring JC Park West on, that'll get really, and the West Side Park too.
And one of the points about that is a lot of the other communities nearby do have fees. And so we're one of the few that do not. And so, and there's minimum revenues we have available from the park board to do improvements on the parks, except for development areas. So I think there's great avenues to add some fees in. Eric, did you have another question?
I just wanted to comment on that. Jeff, I totally understand that. Not opposed to it. There are 2 points that and I'm guessing, so, like you said, there'll be further discussion, but 2 points right off the top of my head would be having multiple sports on the same fields during the same seasons could lead, and we wanted to talk to you about this anyway. Like at Highlands and Etherwood, lacrosse is going to want lacrosse markings on field, and soccer is going to want soccer markings on field. And there are soccer goals on fields, and then they're going to need to move them off and put on lacrosse goals, those kinds of things. That's a lot of stuff that needs to be kind of coordinated. So that's number one. Number two would be with grass fields, there is always the need to rest them. So even if you could rent fields 24 hours a day, you shouldn't, because you would end up with mud. So I would just point those things out, like a field not being used is not always a bad thing.
Oh, no.
So
no, in fact,
I totally understand and agree. I get it. The concept, I'm right along with it, but I think those are some things that do need to be considered when going in that direction.
Great.
Thank you, Eric. Let's call for a vote. Let's call for a vote on the item 2 about the motion that's out there. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you. We'll go on to the next third item of 6A. The Oregon Youth Football request to use Kaiser Park for games in Bergamot Park for practices in fall of 2021.
Mark, I'm going to go, but I did just want to say thank you to the park board. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate you joining in.
And,
Right.
oh, Mark, this letter that we just sort of passed, that was from Jennifer Hansen, who had concerns about having soccer at Bergamot Park, just for the record. So, and I'll make sure the village board sees that as well. So,
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
And I'm happy to talk on this if that makes sense. My name is John Jakey, the president of Oregon Youth Football.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, John.
I appreciate getting on the agenda and appreciate all the board, Parks Board does for the community as well for all of our sports. The first item, Kaiser Parks, we've used those diamonds just for our night games. It's 2 weekends for our little kids. It's been great to see the little kids play underneath the lights. It happens one Saturday, usually late September, and then the following Saturday we'll do the other age group. So first and second, and then third and fourth. And that's all we're asking for Kaiser. We've done it for years there. We don't use it for anything else other than it has the lights to use it. And the high school won't let us use the varsity football field, obviously, during the fall to play light games there. So that's Kaiser. Bergamot Park. We have not asked for any official village park play area in the past because we've been able to use Bergamot Park as our flag football practice area. And we would like to continue to use that. I don't recall any issues with the football program using that park that I've ever heard of over the years. If there has been some, it has not been translated to me, and I've been with the Oregon Football Board for probably 12, 13 years. So we are requesting that to use Bergamot in the fall, and it's usually middle of August through late October. Monday through Thursday is typically when we have practices. If that's not the case, we'd like to discuss it, obviously, other village parks, since we don't use any village space right now. And we'd like to discuss that. So questions, concerns, I'm happy to discuss it.
Questions from the park board? Phil, you are muted.
still muted.
Still muted.
I'm running 2 computers and grabbing the wrong mouse.
We've all been there.
Yeah. I'm not clear. It sounds like this gentleman has said that football has used Bergamot in the past. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes, that's an accurate statement. Yes.
And you're asking to continue to do the same?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I'm clear on that point. Thank you.
Yes.
John, Dave talking here. You do not play games at Bergamot, do you?
We do not. We play all of our games on Saturday on the high school practice fields, and we use school property for our football activities, except for practices for flag, because we just don't have space with the high school football program and our tackle program. That's the one reason we've kind of moved to Bergamot Park years ago, working with soccer to make sure that there was enough fields for everyone, and we haven't had any issues. And that's, yeah, so we play no games at Bergamot Park, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions for John?
What are the typical hours that you're at Bergamot Park?
Yep.
Those weeknights?
Yeah, great question. Usually starting like 5 to 6 to 7 or 8, depending how the sun goes down, because you're talking about the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually Monday through Thursday.
Mike, the comments and letters we've gotten regarding use of Bergamot Park, those have not been specifically about football, correct?
I don't think I've ever received a complaint about football. I can't recall one, so yeah, it's gone well there. And I think Dave asked a great question. They're not games, so there's really not that many parents that park on the road because it's just practice.
And just a couple that comment. I actually live in Bergamot. I have not heard any issues from any of my neighbors either. But the other thing about parking, is we've always asked our parents to park on the side of the field, not in front of people's houses, and obviously as well.
You guys did a great job. Yep, on doing that. Yep. Yeah, I would say 0 complaints.
Excellent.
Yep.
Want to make a motion to approve this request?
I'll move, Mark, to allow football to use Kaiser for the night games and Bergamot for practices.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a second?
Fine, second.
Very good. Any further discussion in regards to this? Call for a vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you, John, for joining. I appreciate your input.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Moving on to 6B, discussion possible recommendation to the village board regarding the use of 102 and 153 Alpine Parkway, lots of temporary athletic fields for 2021.
So some exciting new options for, again, temporary use for athletic fields and maybe some other community uses on these 2 lots on Alpine and near the Alpine CC intersection. For those that don't know, the village just purchased last Friday. We had the closing for the One Community Bank property, which includes both 101 Alpine Parkway and then 153, which is the lot just to the south there. And while the bank is going to be in the bank space until the end of September, this lot isn't being used for anything right now, and they are supportive of us using that for fields in the meantime. So we thought we might see how this goes this year. This lot isn't completely flat. There's a high point here in this corner, so I think some of the larger field layouts, I just did very rough estimates in terms of field sizes for different age groups, just to see what might fit. But there's a couple different options, I think, more for some of the smaller fields to fit on, and depending on which group would like to use this and how they want to stripe it, I think there's a lot of options here. The village has also talked about, this could be a space for eventually if the farmers market needed to move or hold outdoor concerts or events or fundraisers or something like that. We do have some housing around here, so we want to just be cognizant of that and be respectful to those neighbors. But that's a use, at least for this year, we think would be a good fit and use of that space since it's not being used for anything else. And then since then, we actually had a conversation with Dan Bertler, who owns Supreme Structures and owns this commercial property just kitty corner from that other lot. So this is 102 Alpine. Here's the Miller Dental Bank building, and we've actually spoke with the dentist office, and they're totally supportive of this use, and I think even parking on that side in their lot, since it'll be for weekend or evening use. I think he is comfortable with that. So there's a couple of different options, again, for layouts, depending on which sport, what ages would be interested in using that space. But just wanted to bring you all up to speed on that, and I guess get the park board's blessings to use those as temporary parks this year. We do anticipate, construction on this lot sometime probably next year. So at least just for this year, this would be another kind of overflow space for youth sports to use.
So this is mostly informational. Go ahead, Phil.
I'm just looking at the street there. It is a boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if parking is allowed along Alpine.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder how you might plan to direct the parking.
Yeah. So again, when the dentist office is closed, they're open to having folks park in their lot. Okay. There's also ample parking across the street here. It's not shown on the lot here, but basically anywhere that is the bank property would think that parking would be allowed as well.
the bank parking lot?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then is, perhaps Jeff would know this, is Alpine no parking along there?
It's not signed for no parking.
Because I
You
believe
know-
it's too narrow to have people park there.
Well, it's actually pretty wide.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It is, it's a boulevard and it's
Right.
essentially eventually designed for double lane.
Oh, okay,
But yeah, I mean, it's not the ideal spot, but
right,
that's something we'll have to look at. Just as a temporary thing, we're not going to set up any major like gravel lot or anything over there.
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think we looked at it between the parking at the what will be the future village hall there at the bank building, and also along that drive into that other lot, there's some, plenty of room for cars to park in there.
Sure.
And then, like I said, the dentist office have been good to allow us to at least try it for a while. And if it becomes a problem, then, we'll have to look at possibly
Right.
maybe not using that field. But it just was an option. And then we've been out, we've told them we will take over some mowing, or we'll do the mowing on it. And then we had the roller out there today to kind of, because it has not been used as a playing field at all. And so we wanted to roll it and kind of get it to what we feel is at least a playable surface for at least the little tykes.
Great, that answers my questions. I guess if the league would encourage parents or let them know that the bank and the dentist office parking is available, that would
Yeah.
probably go a long ways.
Yep.
And then if that roller is available, I know a baseball diamond on another wood that could use rolling.
Well,
Very good.
we borrowed it from the school, so
Oh, okay.
that'll tell you how available I guess it is or isn't.
Right.
Jerome, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, so I think Jeff already spoke to some of what I was going to ask regarding how, if we go ahead with this recommendation, how would those fields actually get prepared? Does that fall on the village or does it fall on the clubs? I heard some of the club presidents talk about they're out there striping fields and things like that. How does, maybe just a general question.
Well, we see this as being a great spot for what I call the little tykes, the ones that have their jerseys, which almost go below the knees, those kind of, and where they fit a lot of tiny little fields. And usually the fields are marked with just a few cones on the corners and tiny little goals. I actually was very surprised. I went out and met out there with Gary, and I met out there a couple weeks ago because I honestly thought it'd just be a weed patch. And I was very surprised with the quality of grass that was out there. And it was a little rough, and that's why we decided to go ahead and have it rolled. I think it's going to be perfectly fine for practices. I would not put, the very aggressive teenagers and games and stuff like that out there. But, I think this will be great for practices and maybe some, small kid games.
Super.
Mark, can I just ask, make a point of clarification? So, and good question in the chat that, should she put these on the reservation system? If the motion comes out of the park board tonight for both the use of the fields, I would feel comfortable doing the bank lot because the village owns the property. But the Dan Bertler one, we still are working on a short-term lease with him, and it wouldn't be right to reserve that field just yet until the lease is signed by Dan, because we don't, just from a liability standpoint. So the park board can make a motion to use both fields, but for Dan's lot, that's got to come back and a lease has to be approved. So before Deb puts it on the reservation system.
Jerome.
Who sets the hours that these fields get used in? Is that up to us to recommend as well? I mean, given that there's obviously with the dental office there, and most of the use of these for practices would be after hours, I assume, but do we establish the hours? Is that part of a recommendation we would make, or is that something that Deb does in the reservation system, or how does that work?
Well, in the reservation system, the Village of Oregon parks are open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. But Mike, I think you'd have to go on farther than that. I don't know what you can do with recommendations with these new fields.
I mean, I think that's a great question, because I think, Jeff, when you talked to Chad Miller, you indicated that it was going to be, the field would be used after he's closed, generally, well, he will be closed after, and on the weekends. Yeah, so I would say that field, when that's reservable, would be after 4:30 on the weekends, Deb.
And I think we can set some hours on those, Mike, or don't you think? I mean, I think.
Absolutely.
You know,
right. Well, just like how soccer, you know, with their request, they said, you know, whatever, 4 to 6 or 5 to 8, something like that. So I think whichever group or groups end up deciding to use it, we'd probably have them maybe come back to park board and just, you know, have that clarified and in the minutes that these are the hours and days of the week we expect that to be used.
Okay.
I don't think we want anyone out on those fields in that residential zone out there later than 8.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, 8 or 8:30 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would need a name of what you want to call that lovely field, and then the hours you would like it to be operated.
Okay.
And
One
then
of them is, yeah. One of them is Piotr Park.
And the other is the other one's
Nice.
Mike Grace Memorial Field.
Yeah.
Oh
Thank
my
you,
goodness.
Lise. Thank you very much.
You're not, I know you're not dead yet, but
Pretty close. Pretty
Wow.
darn close.
Grace Acres.
Yeah,
we keep
Grace
joking
Acres,
about
yeah.
memorials to Mike, but maybe for now we would just call them by their addresses, Deb.
Yeah.
So 153 is here and 102 is this corner.
That's a good idea.
Seems pretty democratic, so.
Yeah.
So make a,
All right,
a
just to be
motion
clear, oh, sorry.
Go
Just to
ahead,
be clear,
Deb.
153 Alpine is the one that is reservable?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, and then we will let you know once we get things squared away with Bertler.
Thank
And
you.
that's 102.
I saw
And then-
Dave had a question.
No, my question being, Deb, I don't remember, I've been gone so long. Are you able to put on this field like soccer only? Because my guess would be is if it's a reservable field, I wouldn't put it past, you know, if other sports organizations see kids playing on it, if they go and reserve it, and I don't think we'd want baseball or anything like that being played over there. I would just be afraid that they would reserve that space if it's there. Does that make sense?
Yep. So what we can do with the system is this: if people reserve it and they'll say what it's going to be used for, I can either approve or deny. And if I deny, I could
Okay.
explain to them why. That
Okay.
you know, at this point, it is only for soccer or whatever you as a board decide is what I can reply back to them.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember if you could do that or if that's how you had to handle that, but that I could just see it happening. That's why no problem.
Like I don't know if lacrosse would be an appropriate
Yeah.
use out here, and if that's even
Yep.
a space for them. I did look at some of their dimensions. It looked like it was maybe not quite long enough for a lacrosse field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would probably be very touchy. I don't think even the youngest lacrosse group would probably struggle to get a decent practice, but that's,
Oh. So it may end up just being soccer.
We
Which,
do have Sorry, I think my internet's going in and out. I was just going to say ultimate. We have all frisbee, lacrosse, rugby are some of those bigger field or field spaces that need like soccer does.
Okay. We should take a board action in regards to this. We want to take a motion.
Well, I'm still unclear are we going to limit it to soccer then? Is that the intent?
I don't think you should.
It sounds like it would be helpful for Deb, forgive me, Deb, for suggesting that we do name what's allowed and what's not. And I believe Dave mentioned that he didn't think that lacrosse or baseball would be suitable. Is that accurate?
well, I don't know the exact dimensions of that field. I just, lacrosse, I suppose if you put some of the littler kids learning the game probably would be okay.
Yeah.
My intention of the baseball, I don't know that they would ever need that, quite honestly, but if it's there to reserve, I'm just wondering, and I'm thinking more from the state of with the residential with houses and such, I don't know that you'd want baseballs over there. Would probably be more of my concern than the space that it has, but.
So you could limit it to soccer, lacrosse, what was
ultimate frisbee,
and I guess you could put
football.
Yeah, that might be another option for John's younger kids too in the youth football group. I don't know if I think he left.
Yeah, but I know when Eric looked at this from soccer, he actually thought maybe lacrosse would fit on here on our.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Right, at least for practices, right?
For practice.
So,
yeah, I mean, in practice wise too, you can get away with going smaller
when
you're just doing it. That's yeah, I get that.
I also believe rugby would be appropriate for that. The balls aren't flying all over.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yep.
So I've got soccer, lacrosse, football, ultimate frisbee, and rugby as appropriate uses for those.
If we limit to that, okay. Do we have a motion to approve the use of these fields for these purposes on Alpine?
I would make the motion to recommend to the village board the use of 102 and 153 Alpine Parkway for temporary athletic fields for use by soccer, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, football, and rugby.
Do we have a second?
I'll second Mark, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Jerome?
No, I was going to second.
Sorry, Jerome.
No problem. No problem.
Do we have further discussion?
I do have one question. Are we going to limit this just to practice and not games? And I should have asked that earlier. Sorry. Does it matter?
Jeff, did you have a comment?
Oh,
I don't think so.
I would say that it does matter only in the sense that a game has twice as many people there.
That's what I was thinking for parking.
Yeah.
I do think that with the parking that's adjacent here on these commercial properties and limiting the hours of when this is going to be available, I would think that there's ample parking here if there was space for games by the fields. But again, it's temporary, so it's not forever. We could see how it works, and if it ends up being an issue, we'll address it as that comes up.
Sure.
Exactly what I was gonna say. I think this is we just get so many requests for field space and practice space and everything, and we looked at this and said this is green open space that we can offer even on a temporary basis till we get Westside Park or something else up and running. At least kind of helps just fill the void.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Neither of these will be permanent parks.
Great. Let's call for a vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Great, wonderful. Item 6C, discussion of possible recommendation to the village board, the installation of bat houses at Stone Ridge Park on Cherrywood. This is something that was surfaced to me by an email while the park board was on suspension, and so couldn't get any action at the time frame. And so as we got organized again, I reached back out to Kaylin and offered up that saying, okay, we're back to the park board. Are you still interested? And so he's very interested, but he's also very occupied right now. And so he's not sure when he can get to it. I still think it's worthwhile to bring to the park board to see if this is something that a community involvement would be worthwhile. I think he put some good thoughts that he put together and how we go about it. I don't know the action time frame of this. I just wanted to bring in front of the park board to get your awareness of what this is, the possibilities of how we can kind of bring some things to nature. As you saw, there's a follow-up email as well from the park board last month. is that somebody offered up there may be an opportunity to actually get the bat houses donated. So I'm not really calling for an action on this particular one unless the board sees that some value to going ahead with it.
Mark, does it sound like he would proceed this year at a later date, or?
It's a possibility. So if he got approval of it, he would find that time to do that. So got the permission. We can also ask him to submit it back when he feels the time's available.
Well, I guess I would make a motion to okay the installation of the bat houses at Stony Ridge Park on Cherrywood through the end of 2021. Then it will expire and we can revisit.
That's a great idea. I like that idea. Is there a second on it?
I'll second that. Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie. Jeff.
I think this is a fine idea. I just want to ask if maybe amend a little bit Phil's motion that it would be by approval of, Parks Department / Public Works Director for location, and that kind of under the understanding that if somebody does erect something like this, like we get people that have erected bird houses and finch houses and stuff, and it's really on to that entity to maintain them, keep them up, and that type of stuff. And if they don't get upkept, we want to make sure that it's not village's responsibility to all of a sudden take on the long-term ownership and upkeep of that. So I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure that, if they fall in disrepair and they fall over and fall down, we would recycle the wood, that type of thing. And then locations, we just don't want to make sure that someone doesn't put it in a location that would not be suitable for long-term plans for the village or playing fields or whatever.
So looking for amending of the motion to include that the village staff would have.
Yeah, I would make the amendment subject to approval of Public Works. Is that how you'd want that to read, Jeff?
Yep, that would be great.
And second, that the installing party or parties are responsible for upkeep maintenance.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right.
All right, did I get approval of the second on that as well, that amendment?
I'll second. Jamie.
Okay. Yep. Excellent. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you very much. Item 6D, the Oregon Wellness Coalition stepped forward on the April Park cleanup they've done for several years, and that runs through April 30th. So they've reached out in social medias and different avenues to get that message out. So they have a sign up as well. So I didn't look at the sign up the last couple of days, but it looked like it was getting a lot of activity as of last week. So that's awesome. I think it's a great opportunity to start beginning kind of the adoption of a park, which we kind of moved forward a year ago, trying to get engagement for community help on our parks. So I think it works out really well. Have you seen any activity so far, Jeff?
I have not been aware of anything. I mean, normally we're notified so that we can then pick up the garbage bags on Monday morning or grind up the brush. But to be honest with you, it could have happened and it's just not made it up to my desk or anything,
Okay.
We've had one person that went into the park so far and did about 4 hours worth of work. And then we've got some other people that are starting to come into, they have a whole month of April to do this, but the parks are I'm still getting people signing up. As of yesterday, I had another group sign up, which is wonderful. And the Oregon Progressives have joined us. So we're just getting more groups that are trying to help the cause.
Excellent.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Deb, you have a Darth Vader voice with your internet going in and out.
Oh, no.
We can hear you.
Sorry.
Girl Scouts
I do
clean up
fight.
One Trust Park on Sunday, so okay.
Great.
I do think this is a perfect opportunity for the community to start realizing some of the parks that they may not be aware of, and it's very valuable in that sense alone. And that complemented the scavenger hunt that took place this last winter. I had met somebody that I met in one of the parks, and they were swinging in the cold weather in the winter. And I said, "How are you guys doing?" And she said, "This is awesome. We haven't seen so many of these parks before." And it was just wonderful to have that opportunity to go and see these parks in the middle of winter and realize there's some parks that they haven't seen before. So really refreshing. The response was awesome. The numbers escape me. I think it was over 300 people that visited. So it was wonderful. So anytime we can do that, get people out in the parks, adds value.
Absolutely.
6E, update on the Rotary Trail, the multi-use path along Highway CC and the 2021 trail maintenance.
Yeah. The Rotary Trail is still there, and it's still, some of it's still water curing, and will likely continue to be underwater through this year. You probably read a great article in the newspaper on kind of some of the things that have been going on with Lake Barney and some of the ideas that are truly long-term. We are reaching back out to the family to look at the possibility that owns the property adjacent to where the path is flooded, and maybe re-looking at the option of securing an easement through there. We were close before, and I think hopefully we can get to an agreement this time around, but we're looking at all the options on that. But it'll be pretty much the same as what it is now through 2021. Multi-use path along Highway CC, we're working with the developer that is purchased that area over at Highlands and Netherwood. That would extend eventually when that path goes in. Our goal is to have a 12-foot paved path along County Highway CC from Bergamot Boulevard, all in front of Beehive, and then further west to actually get out to what would be the new development out there, and the trail system that'll be part of that system out there. So we hope to be able to get that trail out there, well, whenever this development goes in. That the developers just purchased that parcel that Elise is going to circle around there. It's just just that parcel right there. And so a lot of this has triggered a new development agreement and hopefully a new path out there. 2021 trail maintenance. Well, we'll be looking into some options. We do have some trail maintenance funds that we've borrowed for. We're looking at a product that we used out on Keller Alpine Park along that trail that's right along Alpine Parkway. If you remember, we were out there and kind of did a coating, a product coating out there to help lengthen from Oregon Parks Avenue up to Netherwood. And we're just kind of keeping our eye on that to see how that handled the winter, how it handled snow plowing, and how it's coming out. And we may end up moving ahead with some of that product on our other asphalt trails so we can try to lengthen the life of some of this asphalt.
Anybody in the park board have any questions or comments from Jeff? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item 7, new business. There's none. Does anybody in the park board have any new business they'd like to bring to the group? I would like to bring up one of the, as we look at all the park use and we look at all of the sports activities that's taking place, and there's lots of different interest in expanding spaces. It's been a while since we've really looked at what the needs of the use of the spaces are. And I think at one point, previous park board involvement, we had some discussion about should we do some investigation and do some surveys to identify what the needs have been. I thought I remember 10 years or longer ago that there was some study that was done. And my understanding from representation from the school was that they were willing to look at that as well. And they might have even made a contact. Tim LeBrun is listening into the meeting as well. And I thought we had some action that we would work together with the school to maybe fund an avenue to do a study in regards to that. Do you guys remember anything in the park, in the village side of anything, but?
So Mark, I just got to caution you that we should be careful about talking this since it's not on the agenda. We could put it on the
Okay.
next agenda for the open meeting.
That's what
law.
I'm questioning.
We should be careful.
Yeah.
That's the question, is just to bring it into the next meeting about looking at that.
Yeah, I do remember that conversation last year. The other thing I was going to mention is that our park and rec plan goes through 2023 as well as our comprehensive plan. So probably next year through 2022, we'll be updating both of those. So that might be a good time at that point when we're updating that park and rec plan and the comp plan anyway, to bring in the adjacent, towns and the city of Fitchburg and the school district to have some of those more directed conversations about needs and, obviously having the sports organizations and the park board part of those conversations too.
Okay.
So may not need to double up efforts. I think that's definitely coming down the pike next year.
Very good. Number 8, unfinished business. We had none involved with that thus far. Number 9, public works report and park board comments.
I don't have too much other than what I've talked about, unless anyone has any comments on parks or anything. They're all waking up and they're looking really good.
Do you want to mention the crosswalk at Bergamot? Did you mention that as part of the path?
I did not, but we will be putting in a crosswalk out at Bergamot.
Bergamot and CC.
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
great.
Yeah, that's part of the budget out there, and just ramps and a painted crosswalk at this point, and signage.
Nice.
Yes, Jerome.
I have a selfish question regarding pickleball and the parks on Oak Street, or the courts on Oak Street. They're in pretty tough shape. And I talked to Mike Barone, and I think there was in the plans that there is a potential for resurfacing. Where does that stand, Jeff? Is that still in the works this year?
Absolutely. Well, yes. So it is part of our budget for this year and part of our borrowing, as well as some funds we carried over to have those courts completely resurfaced. I want to look at a few things as well out there. If there's, some of the standards have kind of moved a little bit, the tennis standards.
Yeah.
So that might require some additional work and such. But yeah, that's our goal. Unfortunately, right now we're just super swamped with a lot of things. But Mike Barone has graciously offered to kind of seek out some pricing and some availability, and he's in one of my out-of-date emails that I need to respond to. But the hope is to be able to do it this year. If we cannot do it in a decent time this year, then I might hold it to have it done spring of next year, so we're not doing something in the fall and then immediately putting a cold, crappy winter ahead of it. So
yeah, well, what I was gonna suggest was, if you needed help, I know in the past Mike and I helped him a little bit. We kind of did some of the legwork on maybe lining up some contractors and things. So I just wanted to make sure Mike had already reached out to you, so that's good. So okay.
Yeah, but a good question.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the park board?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. Thank you for that crosswalk at Bergamot. I lived in the townhomes a couple years ago and asked if it could happen. So it's really nice to see that's coming to fruition.
Yep.
And then also, I just wanted to thank all of the people who came to the park board today and talked about everything they're doing for the community and nature and native plants and Lerner Park. Really inspired by all of that, and looking forward to future discussions and working with all of you in some capacity. So thank you.
Awesome, wonderful. Any other comments? Yes, Jerome.
Actually, I probably should have brought this up under new business, and I'm not sure how it fits in, but speaking of the pickleball, and then speaking of the bigger project of the JC Park project, I know we had we had a separate meeting with a lot of the sports organizations sometime in March, and we talked about kind of folding that meeting or the updates to the JC Park project into the Parks Board. Do we need to figure out, is that going to be a standing item on the agenda, or is that just going to be something that comes as part of the report from staff, or how do we want to handle that, I guess?
That's actually an interesting idea. We could just make it a standing report. You know, that way it's legally on the agenda. We can talk about it because there'll be things that will be coming to the park board for approval regarding the project. So yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point, just to let the park board know that, yeah, we decided to not have any more of those special early morning meetings with the sports organizations, but we'll just bring that to the park board. And so any discussions will be, you know, fully
Great.
Part of the public meeting and have minutes so we can look back on those. And,
Great.
I know Jeff's been in contact with Rutler. They're working on the design right now, and we're aiming to bid that project later this year, probably sometime maybe November, December, to start construction in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? So item 10, items for future meeting, next meeting date scheduled for moving at the second week. So Tuesday, May 11th at 5 o'clock. How does that work for everybody?
Yep, should be fine.
All right, great. West Side Park would be future items, as well as a fee structure for park reservations off to 2022. Any other business items?
Mark, this is Dave. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was quick checking. You got too quick on the next meeting. My son will have a baseball game that day, which I would not want to miss. But if I need to, I can always call in on my phone to hear into things, and then I can give you guys all play-by-play on what's going on.
All right.
It's what you all want.
Won't be on those fields at Alpine Parkway, is it? Will it?
Well, I'm gonna kind of. Do I have to put that on the agenda, or can I just call and get that set aside? You might actually be able to hit a home run on one of those fields.
I'm looking at the list here, Dave, and I think we excluded that from that.
Well, let's go back to that motion in a for one day. Sorry, go ahead, Mark. Thank you, though.
Call for an adjournment.
Move to adjourn. Van Campen.
Second.
A second. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you all. Got our second meeting completed. So awesome. Good job.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Did them in the book.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Elise and Jeff.
Have a good night.